Hey, good evening, everyone, and welcome to our third and final installment of virtual Best Talks here during these interesting days, to say the least. I just wanted to give you a few instructions. If you could please keep your webcam off so that we can accommodate individuals that might have poor internet connections where they are. You're not going to have the ability to mute or unmute yourself. Emily Vandenbosch, who you don't see, is taking care of all of that. And you can submit questions to the McNivens through the Zoom chat feature. So if you look at the bottom of your screen, there's the opportunity to click chat, and then you can type in any question at any moment during the course of their presentation tonight, and we will field questions, or the McNivens will field your questions at the end. When you are giving your question, make sure that you are identifying yourself as a student, not only your name, your class year, what your area of study might be as well, and that would be helpful to the McNivens as they answer your question. So the other option for those of you who might not be on Zoom and you don't have that chat opportunity, you can use email, and the email address is advancement@houghton.edu. Again, advancement@houghton.edu. We're going to wait about another minute and a half here, and then we will go ahead and get started. Good evening once again to our third and final installment of our virtual Best Talk tonight, featuring Chris and Jennifer McNiven from the class of 1997, who will tell you more what it means to love well, live well, and lead well, as they are working through their organization to develop resilient people of influence in uncertain times. Chris and Jennifer McNiven are both from the class of 1997 and are all about making a difference. The pair invest heavily in the success of other people through their professional work, their volunteer activities, and in their family. Chris and Jennifer work together at Aspire Consulting Partners Incorporated, a research-driven, design thinking, and leadership advisory firm that exists to partner with leaders and organizations so they can thrive and make a positive impact in the world. As the president and opportunity architect of Aspire, Chris focuses on developing intellectual property while developing programs and initiatives to help people move toward their goals. Both an elementary education and psychology major at Houghton, he also holds a master's in counseling psychology from Trinity International University, as well as a master's degree in advanced leadership studies and a doctorate in organizational leadership from Indiana Wesleyan University. Jennifer serves as the executive vice president at Aspire, managing the daily operations and the big picture of the firm. Since the age of 6, she has been working with entrepreneurs, and her experience in human resources, benefits, executive outplacement, and operations makes her a key member of the Aspire team. Recently, she became a functional medicine certified health coach and is launching the Live Well arm of Aspire to encourage individuals to care for their well-being. She holds a bachelor's degree in business administration and management from Houghton and an MBA from North Park University. As a student, Jennifer was a member of the Student Senate, and as an alumna, she has served her alma mater, previously as a member of the President's Advisory Board and as a member of our Board of Trustees. Together, Chris and Jennifer are also faithful financial supporters of their alma mater as members of our 1883 Society. Chris and Jennifer live outside of Indianapolis in Fishers, Indiana, where, did I say Indiana? I feel like I said that wrong. Where their pro bono taxi service for their 2 sons' extracurricular activities has been parked. But they are learning to live, work, and play virtually like so many others right now. So please help me in welcoming Chris and Jennifer McNiven, my great friends tonight. Thank you.
Thank you, Carl. Oh, look at that. Thank you, Carl. I appreciate the introduction, and good evening, everyone. Jennifer and I are grateful to be here with you all. Our prayer is that wherever you are, you're staying healthy, safe, and that you're staying engaged and in relationships through opportunities like this or other things. So yeah, we're happy to be here with you all tonight. 8.5 years ago, Jennifer and I started Aspire. And Aspire, as Carl mentioned, is an organizational development and design thinking firm. And our whole purpose is to help leaders and organizations thrive and make a positive impact in society. In order to do that, we help organizations love well, live well, and lead well. And we'll get into that in a little bit, the actual hows. I just want to give you one more minute on Aspire, just so that you kind of have some context of what we do. I think it's really easy for us to talk in consultant language sometimes, and that can get confusing. So, or isn't really meaningful, frankly. So here are some examples of things that we do. We have an arm that is a talent analytics arm. So we help organizations hire well, compose teams, do leadership development and succession planning, anything related to the people aspect of their business. We have a consulting arm, and in that arm we do things like provide advisory and facilitation services for mergers and affiliations of organizations, so that they can continue to live their missions in the future. We do a lot of strategic planning, and we do a lot of performance improvement. So we help organizations start and launch new business lines, as well as think about their cost containment and how can they operate more efficiently. So that's just a little bit about the consulting services. The last vertical that I'll mention is our coaching services, and that is the Live Well coaching services that Jennifer oversees and the Lead Well coaching services that I oversee. And we'll talk about those as we kind of move forward in our conversation tonight. I want you all to know that love well, live well, lead well is more than just kind of a cute little saying. It's how we approach the world, and we're fortunate enough to have that be also the core and heartbeat of our business. So if that is our way forward, what we do, why it's important to talk about it in times like this, I'll turn it over to Jennifer.
Yeah, thanks. So I'm happy to be here tonight too. So thank you. I'm glad you all have decided to spend your evening with us. Let's talk a little bit about resilience, which I think I've heard that word a lot, and I don't know if it's just because my ears are tuned to it, or if that is a thing that's coming out of this whole coronavirus and changes to our lives. But if we go to trusty Merriam-Webster and the definition of resilience, resilience is an ability to recover from or adjust easily to misfortune or change. And we definitely are experiencing change. And we are all been forced into it in ways that we probably couldn't even have predicted. I'm sure most of you thought that you would be wherever you are on, April 20th? Yay, I know the date. When you thought about this 6 weeks ago, you thought most of you would be on campus, not at home. So we all are experiencing this. So when we're in times of change, when we're in times of stress, we have to make hard choices. And it's mostly choices about how we behave and how we react. And they're not always easily identifiable. But I think the main thing we want to come out of with this is that when we're developing resilience, we do that and we avoid, to use biblical language, we avoid the hardening of our hearts. We come out stronger because of it. And that is our hope for you through this. That is our hope for almost everyone involved in this. But we're going to talk a little bit about that more tonight and how we can do that. It becomes two intersection points. the connection of self, and the connection with the engagement of others. And so I'm going to jump into the Love Well arm of what we're talking about tonight. And that sounds really kind of touchy-feely. And parts of what we were going to say tonight, I don't know that you might expect from two business consultants, but at the heart of how we interact with one another, there has to be love. And that is a universal thing. That's how we show trust. That's how we show rapport. It's at the foundation of all of that. So the loving well is the underlying, persistent, and enduring guide or motivation for what we do. So remember I said there's choices when we're talking about resilience. And our choice, the opposite of love is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. And so in hard times and changing times, whether we're talking about professionally, as a student, personally, in our relationships, our choices are to act out of love, which will lead to resilience and thriving, or fear, which will lead to fragility. And we don't obviously want that. We want to be strong individuals that are grounded in who we are. And the reason we can be grounded, especially for those of us who have faith, is that God loves us, that we are, that's our foundation. We are loved immensely, and therefore we can act out of that love. Now, if the opposite of love is fear, I also don't want anyone to walk away saying you can't feel fearful, because there's plenty to feel fearful about. But the choice comes to how we act. And the acting is acting out of love and making sure that that's the motivation. When we act out of love, we are creating meaning, purpose, value for ourselves and for others. And it results in promoting wholeness, thriving, resiliency of both ourselves and others. And I think Chris was saying about a client that we've had that you can give an example of in a professional setting, what loving well means.
Yeah, so we get to coach a lot of leaders in a lot of different settings. One of the leaders that I coach is one of the most authentic leaders that I've ever come across. He leads with himself. He has shown himself over the last 2 years to have a good sense of who he is, and he shares who he is with his team, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and he presents it. And things over the last couple months started to change. As the CEO of this organization, he started to feel a lot of pressure. And his team began to notice that he was feeling pressure, and they were checking in. Are you okay? Is everything okay? And it started to make him wonder in conversations with me, should I be transparent? Should I be open? Should I be authentic? And the conclusion he came to was, I want to make sure that everyone has permission to have these feelings so that we can figure out a way through together. And so what he did was, after being asked a couple of times, are you okay? Is everything okay? You seem on edge. You seem stressed.
And he was kind of getting frustrated by this question.
He was, and he wasn't sure what he felt uncertain. You could even say fearful, maybe. What he did was he called his team together and he invited them in and he said, look, this is how I'm feeling given this context and what we're working towards. And he opened the question, do any of you feel this way? And they began to share and connect. And then he said, what are ways that we can show support and care for one another? So he modeled loving well by being authentic in who he was, and then also by inviting people in to this loving well towards each other. Kind of the fun thing that's happened over the last 3 weeks is that entire team, their performance has taken a complete jump. They are working better together. They've knocked out several projects related to COVID and also related to affiliations and other work that they were working on. They've been just increased their productivity, and in large part, I think it's because this leader was able to be authentic and open and love well.
And a little bit vulnerable.
Very vulnerable, yeah. So that's an example. That's kind of like flesh to bone, concrete example of loving well.
So yeah, and living well, going back to what I said just a minute ago, results in wholeness, thriving, resiliency for ourselves and for others. It's the foundation, and I've said that a couple times, and that's important, because now we're going to jump to, if that's the foundation, how do we act? So let's jump to live well. Live well. So as Carl mentioned in the introduction, I am a certified health coach, and I could go in 1,000 different directions on this one, and I'm not going to. So what I think is important when we live well also is grounded in our identity. And I think you're going to hear, well, I know you're going to hear us say that time and time again in the next few minutes. Our identity in being rather than our identity in doing. We are very good at doing, and we are very good at avoiding being because we're so good at doing. So let's be for a minute, all right? And I'm going to take you down a weird path. Just go with it. Trust the process. Trust the process, all right? So get comfortable and sit in a way that you can breathe and take a deep breath. We're just going to do a bit of guided imagery for a second. And it has a purpose at the end. It's not just for the point of doing the imagery. All right, so close your eyes for a minute, please. Let me say it again. I'll invite you to close your eyes. If you don't want to, that's fine. All right, so imagine you're in a room that's familiar to you. Maybe it's your kitchen, it's your house. Maybe it's part of your dorm. Maybe it's a dining room, but it has a table. That's why I keep mentioning places that have tables. Maybe it's a campus center. Find some place you're comfortable and pretend you're sitting there at the table. And on that table are snapshots from all across your life, all different times. So slowly use your eyes and go over them in your memory. And you're going to see things, right? You're going to see things that were hard times, times that you're extremely proud of, times that you learned a great deal, celebrations. What I want you to look for or find or rest your eyes on is the picture that shows you being yourself when you feel your best and you're most comfortable. And take a minute and just look at it. Imagine it. Remember what was going on during when that photo was taken, and what happened right before it, and then what happened right after it. Who was around? Who was with you? And think for a minute with your senses. What did you hear? What did you see? Did you smell or taste something? Did you touch something? So now let's go a little deeper. So what do you notice is going on inside of you right now? How are you feeling and what are you thinking? And that's where I want you to come out of with this. Like, how are you thinking and what are you feeling about yourself? So open your eyes and think about those words that you were using to describe that moment. I am willing to bet that that is when you felt most yourself. That is your identity. And likely, you were thinking about some of your character strengths. We all have them. Positive psychology has identified 24 of them. We all house them to varying degrees. We usually have about 5 that we all use. Not all use, but we use the most. Each of us has different ones. They're things like leadership. I use that one first. Humor, creativity, perspective, courage, social awareness of others, love, spirituality, prudence, which means planning, which I will tell you is one of my top ones. And Chris will say, like, I am a routine and rhythm kind of person, and that's just kind of been messed up in the last few weeks. And I thrive on that, so I've had to recreate different things for myself. But my point is, we use our character strengths in different ways. In big ways, that's a big one for me, or small ways. I went to the grocery store on Friday, and I never knew it took so much courage to show up at the grocery store. But it did, and I felt it in that moment. So what did you think of when you were going through that guided imagery exercise? Likely whatever you identified as a feeling, that is one of your character strengths. And studies show that when we're acting from those strengths, again, the acting, we are genuine, we are authentic, and we are grounded in who we are. And usually we are the most well received from others. We are, what?
I was just thinking, if we're the most well received, our influence, which is one of the things that we're talking about, is strongest when we are most ourselves.
Right. And we're going to get into that in a minute, right? So if you're interested in knowing more, and I see some names on here, and I know some people have already taken it, but there's a free tool called the VIA Character Strength Survey. And Emily's going to put it up for you. If you're interested in taking that, you're more than welcome to take this link that she's putting there. And it'll just help you identify your strengths, and it will order them for you, like sequence them for you. And also, if you have any interest in kind of talking through it, you can find me on social media, you can find me on our website. However, I'd be happy to talk to you for 10 or 15 minutes about it. So I make that offer to you as well. But knowing who we are, knowing our identity helps us to live well, because that is the foundation from which we act. And when we know that we're grounded in the love, and we are loving well, and we are being, we will live well. Now, there is a doing part of living well too, and I will go into that just a little bit. There are lots of things I could tell you or give you advice, and I'm going to choose one. And Prochaska and Prochaska are a married research couple that studied motivation. They're experts in motivation, and specifically in people who have addictions. And what they have determined for stress in people across the board is that on average, if you spend 20 minutes a day talking to someone who is a trusted friend, family, or professional, so talking to someone, only walking 20 minutes, or actively relaxing. That sounds kind of paradoxical, but the act of praying, the act of meditating, the act of just being for 20 minutes, our stress reduces immensely. And so if I were to leave you with one way of living well, I would say know your identity, know your character strengths, and observe how you use them, and observe how others use them, use theirs, and then 20 minutes of talking, walking, relaxing.
Perfect.
You ready for lead well?
Let's do it. So we started with love well. Love well is the motivation, right? And loving well comes out of this understanding that we are loved, that we have security in that, and that it allows us then to take steps in living well, which is understanding, developing a deeper understanding of who we are through our character strengths. Living well, like doing one of the 20s, things like that, positions us to lead well. We could go for hours on lead well. We're a research-driven firm. Lead well is a model that's based in research. I'm not going to go in that direction tonight. I'm sorry? Yeah. Jennifer was referencing McKinsey. The firm has a lot of good stuff on the idea of building health and improving performance. Where I'm actually going to go tonight, though, is to say this. Is leading well for all of us here, I would suggest, is not a positional thing. We can swap out lead or influence if we want. Influence well, because that's where we're heading tonight. It's not a positional thing. In fact, when we rely on our positions to lead and say, I'm the boss, or I'm the leader, or I'm the captain, or what have you, we actually are giving away our influence. We actually deteriorate our effectiveness. What I would suggest to you is that you should be leading or influencing out of your personhood. You are, and I don't see your faces, but I know some of your names. You are each gifted and created with intent and purpose. You are loved, and rooted in that security are able to influence and shape others. You may not even know, I don't know you, but you may not even know or recognize the ripples and rings of your influence. It could be people who are up close to you in your life who are watching you. And it could be people further away, people who maybe you have a class with, people who maybe you pass in your community, people in your parish or church or a social group. But you have influence and the capacity to shape others. And so I want to give you 3 strategies to use in this shaping, in this influencing, so that you can lead well or influence well. First one is this, live mission. Mission is a church word, right? It's an ecclesial word and basically has to do with someone being sent to do something, right? And so the question is, who is being sent and to do what? For what impact, what difference? This goes back to your identity, understanding who you are and learning, exploring, articulating the difference you aspire to make in the world is worthwhile. It will shape how you go about and who you influence. It'll also shape how you think about things like power and judgment, how you make decisions, how you exercise your influence. Living mission in a congruent way, understanding who you are and the difference you want to make. Build health is the second bucket. Build health is all about the people side of things, right? It is, how do we cultivate trust and trustworthiness with others? When we are with others, how do we create a sense of belong as opposed to just fit, so that others can be their best selves with us? It goes back to what Jennifer was saying about recognizing other people's character strengths and reflecting that back to them. How do we create spaces where others can adapt or grow, explore, and feel safe, right? That's all about building health. We do that with leaders. We do that with organizations, groups of people, right? And then the last one is improving performance. And improving performance is all about going, when we understand the difference we are to make in the world, or we aspire to make in the world, we move actively towards that. So improving performance has to do with creating the plan and following the plan, right? Plan the work and work the plan kind of stuff. It has everything to do with measuring our progress, taking in new information, and adjusting course or modifying our trajectory. And always keeping the long view in mind. It's all about a sustainable win. Simon Sinek talks about just cause. What is your just cause in the infinite game, right? What is the thing that you are pushing towards that you may never achieve, but that is kind of your true north? These are the 3 buckets of leading well: living mission, building health, and improving performance. I'm going to just put up a slide here real quick. I'm going to share my screen, or I'm going to try to, because I just want to show you, I want to reflect kind of if you forget everything else, we've used lots of words over the last 29 minutes, but if you forget everything else, here's what we want you to remember. Love well. Stand firm in the knowledge that you are loved and created with a purpose. All of us, each one of us on the Zoom call, the people that we relate with, everyone. Live well. Remember that wholeness, resilience, and thriving are equal parts being, understanding who we are, and doing those 20s, like one of those 20-minute exercises that Jennifer suggested. And then finally, lead well. Your influence is not dependent on position. I'm not a CEO, I'm not a manager, is not an excuse to not lead well. Your influence isn't dependent on your position, but on your personhood, on your ability to model and help others live mission, build health, and improve performance. In uncertain times, the temptation is to grab hold and try for control, to act impulsively out of fear. And I think our encouragement to you is to be resilient. Don't let the hardening of your heart happen, right? Continue to meet together, whether it's in these forums or other forums, and encourage one another. Because by loving well, living well, and leading well, you'll have resilient influence in unchanging times. So that's us for this evening. Emily or Carl, I'll throw it back to you in the studios. Or not.
I'm trying.
Okay, there we are.
Hey, there I am. Well done. So we're going to move into a time of Q&A. And what everyone here has an opportunity to do, if you haven't already, through the chat function here, go ahead and submit your questions, and then I'll have a chance to ask them of the McNivens. As we're doing that, though, Emily's going to put up a quick survey on the screen here, and I would like to ask all of you if you could answer the questions. There's just a couple of questions that are going to pop up, and just take a few seconds to do that.
Thanks.
All right. You know, I was thinking, and this is not part of the question yet, Chris and Jennifer, but just this Friday, Houghton carried out its most successful one-day giving challenge that we've ever had. And there were some that, as we went into it, myself included, there were moments of fear over the last 4 to 6 weeks of what is this going to mean, right? And we came to the conclusion, just what you said, we're not going to act out of fear, right? We have Houghton's mission is timeless, and right in this moment, we know it's more important now than ever. And we thought the Houghton faithful would prove resilient, right? And guess what? That's exactly what happened. Like, we just had 200 more donors than we've ever had in the history of the One Day Giving Challenge, $100,000 more than was ever given. And in this moment, you know, it was hugely critical, you know, and so I was reminded tonight about that. Like, what drives you, right? If we had responded with fear, imagine the opportunity we would have missed.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's so true, Carl. And that's a great application of this stuff is true for, or works for individuals. And when individuals come together in organizations, it works for organizations too, right? And it's a way that we can spur each other on. Loving well is a contagious thing. Maybe I shouldn't say that in these days it's contagious, but you know, it's a contagious thing. We can encourage each other with it.
You know, when you talk about modeling as a leader, what are, in the studies that have been done, what are the specific characteristics that are modeled by the most effective leaders generally that you see in the time that you've spent with organizations and leaders?
So what are the qualities
of
the most effective leaders? Is that the idea?
Yeah.
So this is a toughie, right? Because some of it is organizationally dependent. I would say the research is pretty clear that trust and trustworthiness. So when leaders have a gap between what they say and what they do, it erodes trust within an organization, and it creates a culture of exceptionality, which means anybody gets to do anything they want. And those organizations tend to fail over time. Even if they win in the short term, over time they fail. So I would say integrity and trust is probably one of the most significant. If you get into transformational leadership theories, there's a set of characteristics. I wouldn't say there's a consensus on what those are, but I would say integrity is probably number one.
Yeah, so for students, as they are evaluating, you know, not only fields, but particular companies within fields, what's some of the research? How do you go about finding what's at the heart. It isn't always what's a printed mission on a website. Getting at the heart of an organization to figure out if it actually aligns with your personal values and what you're looking for.
Yeah, I can take a swing at it.
Go ahead.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So I would say I would network in and try to secure informational interviews with people in the organization. I think that is that tends to be
What's an informational interview?
so go to LinkedIn, right? Look at the organization, see who your 3 or 2, connection away from. Reach out and connect with them and say, I am a student beginning to explore career paths in organizations. Would you have time for a 15-minute informational interview? I would like to ask you these questions. And come up with 2 or 3 questions that are important to you. So I would do that. I think things like Glassdoor are always helpful, but what I find is that they tend to skew one. They don't always tend to be helpful. And organizations with good Marcom divisions have good counterpunches sometimes for negative reviews on things like Glassdoor. So those would be 2 strategies, I think.
Perfect. We have a question from a younger alum, class of 2019. What are some practical daily habits students or individuals can develop sorry, I'm going to start over again. What are some practical daily habits that students and other individuals can develop to improve their ability to live, love, and lead well? Practical daily habits. So
Well,
even as students or young alums, what are the things that they can be doing on a day-to-day basis?
yeah. I think whatever you can do to eliminate hurry helps. And I think we're observing that as a culture right now because hurry has stopped. I mean, in the introduction, if this was a normal Tuesday night, we would have taken our kids to piano lessons and probably someone would have had soccer practice, and somewhere in there we would have fit dinner and maybe a bit of a conversation.
Did you know it's Monday, Jennifer?
Oh, well, okay, Monday works too. See, I don't even know.
Exactly.
It's all days, Carl. It's just.
I think I call it monkey brain. The hurry creates monkey brain. Maybe the non-hurry does too. I don't know. But so I think whatever that is, and that's going to be something different for every person. But I think the way that we start our day is the way that the day goes oftentimes. And so finding something that is meaningful to you, and meaningful doesn't mean you sit down and have to pray for an hour. Meaningful means, how do you want to start your day? Like, is it you are a get up and, I eat breakfast first and I have this routine and I do bam, 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 bam? Or is it I get up and I go sit for a little bit? This is me. My brain has to get going first. So that's something very practical, like find what works for you. Cut out that 20 minutes a day. Go for a walk. Getting outside, especially as the weather's getting warmer, does miracles for our well-being, both our physical and our psychological well-being. So that, I think that's my biggest one, is get outside somehow.
Yeah.
I think
sorry. No, go ahead, please.
I think the only other one that I would add, I would add a bazillion things, but probably the one that's top of mind is find ways to connect with other people. Yeah. We were on a call with our team this morning. We meet once a week. We're a virtual company with them.
On Monday morning.
On Monday morning, yeah.
Because I do know that this was Monday morning.
That's good. We've got folks in Chicago and DC and all over Texas. Anyways, we meet every Monday morning. And the thing that came up with our team this morning was last week, everybody put their head down and got work done, but we didn't connect with each other because we weren't intentional about it and we felt isolated. So take time, put it in your calendar. Like, I'm going to call a friend or text someone or do a Zoom call, whatever, but be intentional about connecting with somebody 3-4 times a week outside of your routine. Is that fair?
I'm going to throw in one more.
We like these.
So a young graduate or recent graduate or a graduating or a student, you all have goals and things you need to achieve, like whether that's an assignment, whether it's a class, whether it's graduation, grad school, whatever. That's the big goal. So backing out, like deconstruct it step by step. And what most of the time we feel overwhelmed by the big thing in front of us, but what is the first step you need to take? And just focus on that step. And then worry about step 2. Don't get out here when you still need to be down here.
So we have a couple other questions in response to this. So conversely, what are some of the negative habits that we have to avoid?
So I think it's really easy to should and ought ourselves, right? I should do this, I ought to do that, and
they become narratives that we tell ourselves.
Yeah, I think we really need to be careful of the stories we say to ourselves, because they become the truth that we accept. And it is hard if they are skewing negative. It doesn't mean living in a fanciful world.
Yeah.
But if they are unrealistically negative, you'll move towards that fear and away from love really quick. So I think that's one thing that comes immediately to mind.
That's what I was going to say, stopping the negative narrative.
Yeah.
And a way to help check that is bounce it off a trusted person.
Yeah.
This is something that's going on in my brain. Is it right, wrong, or indifferent?
I mean, at the risk of maybe being too candid or too pointy, I say also don't be dumb, right? Like, don't engage in self-sabotaging behaviors. If you want to get out for that walk at 7 o'clock in the morning or whatever before your day starts or whatever, right? Well, don't stay up to 3 in the morning playing Xbox, right? Like, just don't be dumb.
And I've had some of those conversations with college students here. I can't get up from my 8 o'clock when you go into bed. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Our bodies are.
Yeah, they're machines, right? Yep. Sometimes it goes beyond college. People learn that lesson later, right? So.
Absolutely. So actually related to that, this is from a younger alum who says, as a young professional, how can I make an impact at a big company when I'm new?
Yeah.
And then related to that, same person, or how do I foster good habits in a work environment that isn't necessarily Christian?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
sit back and relax.
Yeah. So we don't. I don't necessarily think in terms of Christian organizations, right?
Right.
I think in terms of an organization is where a group of people gather together around a purpose with some shared sense of value, right? I think to the first question, my challenge would be, what's a big impact, right? A big impact can start really local and really, it might feel small. The big impact starts with the regular, consistent demonstration of a behavior or a habit on others, right? So if we are certain, or we are consistently gentle. Now, gentle doesn't mean weak, it means power under control. If we are consistently gentle in our response to others when they're losing their cool, right? Or if we don't get baited into gossiping, or if we steer clear of just some of the organizational politics that happens in a lot of places, every place, I think. By doing that, we set ourselves apart. And when you set yourself apart, people notice. And when they notice, they wonder. And when they wonder, they begin to be open to your influence. So I think it starts small and stay consistent would be my recommendation.
Yeah, well said. Well said. All right. So we have one more question. This came through actually in a text to me. Chris, someone is wondering, what is the hair product?
Best question ever. I'm wondering if that was Dan Noyes. So, okay.
You know him well.
Get ready, because it's not what you expect.
All right. So here's the secret, right? It's 1/3 beeswax, 1/3 coconut oil, and 1/3, what's the other thing?
Shea butter.
Shea butter. And you
Wow.
melt it in a double boiler and stir it, and there you go.
He makes it himself.
I make it myself.
My life is a whole lot easier. I just got to tell you. Hey, you guys are awesome. Thank you so much for taking time to spend with our students and our alumni and faculty and staff tonight. Appreciate all that you continue to give to the life of Houghton College, the way you've invested in the life of Houghton College over so many years. And, you know, I can't thank you enough for giving up your time, your talents, and your expertise to share with us tonight. So thank you, guys.
It's always a privilege to be with you all.
Yeah.
We're grateful for you. Thank you.
And folks, if you ever want to get a hold of Chris or Jennifer, you can touch base with the Office of Advancement. Their email address or their website was up on the chat earlier. We can put you in touch with them.
Yeah.
But you
And
guys,
feel free. We welcome it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
happy to talk.
Yeah.
Anything we can do.
continue to love well, live well, and lead well, guys.
Awesome. Thank you. You
Yeah.
too.
Good
Good
night.
night.
Good night.